Life expectancy in the U.S. dropped last year for the second year in a row.
The average expected lifespan for a person in this country shrank by over 7 months last year.
New data showing us that life expectancy has fallen to its lowest level since 1996.
Average life expectancy for Americans fell sharply again last year in 2021, marking the largest two-year decline in nearly 100 years.
Our life expectancy in the United States is dropping. It's dropping and dropping and dropping.
When you hear the life expectancy in the USA has dropped, how do you process the news? Do you ignore it and continue to live your life as is, consuming the American diet that is centered in the food pyramid that may be linked to declining life expectancy? Or do you pause and process the news and finally take action on your health and abandon the medical dogma that is subsidized by Big Pharma? Well, as I approach 40, a milestone that is often associated with self-reflection, you can count me in with the second camp. Process the news and finally take action. For the past 6 months, I've been trying to find the answer, which has been convoluted as there are many contradicting studies out there. Unfortunately, as with most things in life, nothing is ever black and white, but rather holistic approaches are needed. Some approaches are simple as biological stressors that need to be activated, while others depend on the environment, including social status. However, one thing is certain, it is better to take action now in the journey of health longevity than to be a spectator, or even worse, a statistics. Here are 7 attributes that can determine life longevity in no particular order of importance, starting with number 7.
What if I told you it is more important when you eat than what you eat?
Intermittent fasting, time-restricted feeding, and calorie restriction are just some of the popular methods being adopted.
Yesterday, I started this thing called intermittent fasting, which is everybody's doing it.
Fasting is such an interesting part of the longevity conversation. We've looked at cultures where fasting is a practice, right? Where there's ritual fasting. And asked the question of, well, why are these people living so long? So we know that fasting does kick off certain biological processes that seem to also have a connection to longevity. What we don't know at this point is, how long do you have to fast? Does it work for everyone? Or are there just certain people with certain genetics for whom that works? So there's still a lot of questions, but at this point, it definitely does appear that restricting what you eat might have some impact on how long you live and how healthy you are.
Is this your first meal of the day? It's now almost 6 o'clock.
It will be, yeah.
Really? You have no breakfast, no lunch?
No.
Because?
Well, because it's clear, based on thousands of years of human existence, that eating less is, if it's not starvation or malnutrition, it's good for you.
Because why?
Well, so we didn't know why it was good for you. We thought that it was slowing down metabolism, but it's not the case. What's happening is it's turning on, when I'm not eating, or if you choose not to eat for a meal or two, you're turning on the body's defenses against aging.
In our labs, we always have caloric restricted animal. Okay,
Yeah.
You take brothers, 2 groups, one eat whatever they want, the other gets 60% of that. And they live 40% longer and healthier. And people, and we know it since the 1950s, but people assumed that means that you give less for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You just eat less throughout the day,
Right.
as opposed to, but that's not what it is though, right?
No. If we actually are giving them all the food throughout the day, they're thinner, but they don't live longer. So you need the fasting to upregulate the mechanism for aging.
Well, the trick to longevity is a term called hormesis, which is a little bit of stress on your body, biological stress. So running, bit of hunger, cold, heat, puts your body in a state of perceived adversity. So you don't have to hurt yourself, but you put your body in a kind of a scared state. Oh my goodness, I could die if this continues. And then they turn on these defenses against aging. So we have these genes that get turned on. Some of them that we work on are called sirtuins. And so by being hungry, we've shown that you turn these on and then your body defends itself. If you sit around and you eat constantly, they don't work very hard.
Really?
And your clock ticks faster.
There's a new diet creating some buzz called the carnivore diet. And I wondered, is it really an all-meat diet? I spoke one-on-one with the doctor who raves about it in today's Living a Better Life.
The concept is not mainstream.
Have you heard of the carnivore diet?
No.
No?
Meat, cheese, probably similar to the Atkins diet.
Sounds like a lot of meat. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Steak for breakfast?
Yes.
Are you a big fan of fruits and vegetables?
I am.
might not like this diet. It's basically eating only animals, no plants.
If you can hunt it, that's an animal food.
I heard another clinician say, we've always been eating meat. That's the standard. We know that's good. Plant-based, that's the new intervention. You need to prove that's better. We've already established meat's good. Yeah. You need to prove that plants are better. So we don't have to, you have to prove that meat. No. That's established. You're the new guy.
Let's talk about something I think you guys can both agree on, because I am baffled by this carnivore diet.
Yes.
I'm baffled.
Yes.
I'm baffled by how many people are clinging to it as a panacea. I'm baffled by whether or not it's a physiological effect or whether there's a placebo effect going on.
I have a theory.
Please.
Yeah. So my theory is that it mimics some of the benefits of fasting, but allows people to persist for longer because it's providing some nutrition. If you look in the scientific literature, fasting is like the cure-all for everything.
I agree with you.
I mean, like you can look at any condition and fasting is the cure.
We're talking water fasting, so you can do it for 2, 3, 4 weeks.
The problem is try that for a year. That will be the cure for life in that case.
The longest example is a year of water fasting.
So most people
That's
are
that
not.
guy that lost it was 300
he was extremely obese.
Right.
He was
a lot of energy stores
living
to
off
use
of his fat stores. Right.
But the fascinating thing about that was that his skin shrank too.
Right.
Which is really
which doesn't usually happen with weight loss. So this is just a theory. I have nothing to. I don't have any evidence. But when meat is absorbed very high up in the digestive tract, and so when you only eat meat, it's a low residue diet, and there's nothing left over to irritate or inflame the gut. My theory is a lot of people who are benefiting from this have a really disrupted gut microbiome. Alessio Fasano has argued that leaky gut is kind of a precondition for autoimmunity, and the carnivore diet is essentially like a gut rest or a fast. And so I don't, doubt that people are benefiting from it. The question is, what is the long-term implication?
But there is there's a few people that have been doing it. There's some anecdotal evidence. People have been doing it for a few decades.
Well, it's pretty cool. I'm actually going on my homeboy Sean Baker's podcast in a few weeks.
You guys are homeboys?
Sean and I started as enemies. We love each other. Sean, I love you, brother. We're going to have an honest discussion as much as you can to say, why is Mikhaila Peterson feeling good? And you got to love that and honor that. If she had done water fasting, transitioning to an ultra clean diet, would she have done as well?
I've said this before, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago when I heard about a carnivore diet, I thought it was crazy. I thought you'd have to be a lunatic to do a carnivore diet. It made no sense. And then I actually researched it and talked to people who did it and learned more about it. And all of a sudden it made a lot of sense, right? It's a form, on the one hand, it can be a form of an elimination diet that you're getting rid of so many other foods that could trigger reactions to you. You're eating whole foods. You're certainly getting rid of all processed foods. You're getting a great amount of protein. You're eating low carb. And people are seeing tremendous benefits from autoimmune conditions, obviously diabetes, high blood pressure, metabolic type conditions. So if you can see these types of benefits, you really have to question, well, do we need to prove? We should probably need to prove that there's a harm before encouraging people not to do it.
If you're really committed to developing your cardiorespiratory fitness. I think I talked about this on one of the podcasts, maybe it was on Tim's podcast. You're trying to maximize the area of a triangle, right? So the triangle has a base and the triangle has a peak. And the goal is how big an area can I get? Not how wide, not how tall. You don't want one that's this wide and this tall, and you don't want one that's this tall and this wide. You want the max. The base is your zone 2. The peak is your VO2 max. From a training perspective, the rule of thumb that is applicable for people like us, i.e. normal people, and the best athletes in the world is roughly 80-20. 80% of your volume is down here, 20% of your volume up here. In fact, some of the really, really elites are probably closer to 90-10.
So you're saying no matter if you're just an ordinary athlete or you're the best of the best, it's still roughly the same.
Tadej Pogačar, who's the greatest cyclist on this planet, 2-time winner of the Tour de France, absolutely mopping up the field of cyclists like they're children. That guy's doing 80 to 90% of his training at Zone 2. And I know that for a red fact because we know who his coach is.
On this morning's Health Watch, no more excuses about working out. Experts now say normal people can train like Olympians, doing short, intense interval training. Here with details is our own Dr. Jennifer Ashton. Do you do this? Are you an interval trainer?
I'm going to start today.
Starting today? This is a new study. I don't know what it is say.
Well, this is an example of everything old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the past, people heard about this type of interval training. Now it's coming back into the forefront,
Right.
not just for Olympic or elite athletes,
Right.
but for people like us, which basically says you can cut your total exercise time in half
Right.
if you just exercise more effectively, more efficiently. So instead of jumping on the the treadmill, staying at the same pace for 45 minutes, mix it up, do short bursts. It's much more effective.
Explain what interval training is, because the whole idea is about getting your heart rate up a lot.
You need to stress your body. That's the key. Your body wants to go to a steady state. So even if that's on a treadmill, it wants to stay at its one level and stay there.
Right.
What interval training is instead...
Because not that that's bad for you. This
well,
is
it's better than nothing, but this is better. This is the Uber workout. So what you would do here is instead of just running on a treadmill for 20 minutes, you would run for 4 minutes, you would get off, you would rest for 3 minutes, and you would do that 4 times. So 4 minutes of exercise, 3 minutes of rest, 4 minutes of exercise,
okay,
3 minutes
hang on. The slow, dumb kind of treadmill like this, or super fast? Because isn't the whole idea you want to really ramp it up, rest, ramp it up, rest?
Here's a great analogy. We're watching the Olympics, you're watching hockey. Those hockey players can be on a treadmill for an hour, they're skating for an hour, but when they get on the ice, they're on the ice for 30 to 45 seconds. They're working as hard as they can and they're coming off. So you can do that too.
Would one workout then be as good as 4 times normal trips to the treadmill?
There's no direct thing, but the key point here is it improves your oxygen use, it improves your endurance, it improves your strength, all of those things, better for your heart, better for your mind, it makes your exercise more fun.
Those are all green arrows going up in the right direction.
It's all good.
Interval training.
That's the
In today's Daily Power Prescription, we're calling out the benefits of a cold shower. Water therapy has been used for centuries to take advantage of our body's tendency to adapt to harsher conditions. Experts believe it helps our bodies become more resistant to stress. You ask, what are the potential health benefits? Well, it can boost endorphins and provide a kind of gentle electroshock therapy to the system. A holistic approach gaining momentum finds hydrotherapy can actually offset depression. In a clinical trial, scientists found a cold shower of up to 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, helped lessen signs of depression. The idea is that cold water sends electrical impulses to the brain that jolt your system and release endorphins, those happiness hormones, and improves metabolism. Other research suggests cold showers improve metabolism and help fight obesity over a period of time. Cold showers also improve your circulation and reduces inflammation, and some people report because of this, their skin even looks better. So, how do you do it? The secret is to build up your tolerance by easing into the practice slowly. Start by lowering the temperature just enough that it's uncomfortable, and get under that cold water for about 2 to 3 minutes. Try breathing deeply and relax your mind. Next, take the temperature down a little more and stay in a little longer. Now, try this 7 to 10 times, and guess what? You've got it. Oh, and by the way, a cold shower is any shower less than 70 degrees. Not so bad, right?
Is it true that in every single conceivable measurable metric, if you have like saunas, it's good for you? Like heart disease, it's good for respiratory conditions, it's good for cancer. Is that true, or is that fake news?
It's almost true, with the exception of cancer. That hasn't been shown yet. But as you mentioned, thermal stress, the sauna is a type of thermal stress. You're elevating your core body temperature, much like exercise. When you exercise, you elevate your core body temperature. You sweat to try to cool yourself down. Well, saunas, they're a type of stress. They're called intermittent stress. And this is the same type of stress that exercise is. It's a good type of stress where you're stressing your body, but your body has evolved these stress responses that are beneficial to that stress. I mean, humans were, throughout evolution, we were exposed to intermittent stress. We were, hunting, gathering, we were running fast to get prey, that we went through periods of food scarcity, right? Like these are types of intermittent stress, and our bodies have evolved pathways, genes that are turned on that sort of respond to that are not only beneficial in that moment, but they have a net beneficial effect. Anti-inflammatory responses, antioxidant responses that are active much longer than the intermittent type of, stress period that we sort of engaged in.
There's a sobering new study about the long-term effects of alcohol. Having just 1 drink a day could impact your brain.
That's according to a new large-scale study, and CBS 2's Bradley Blackburn takes us through the findings.
We're coming to the end of dry January, where millions of Americans abstain from alcohol for the entire month. This yearly ritual again underscores the accumulating evidence that drinking alcoholic beverages, even in what are considered relatively small amounts, can be harmful to our health. William Brangham has the latest, including how Canada is considering radically revising its recommendations for drinking.
So even small amounts of alcohol, 1 to 2 drinks a day, 7 to 14 drinks per week, have been associated with thinning of the neocortex, the in the brain in humans. We definitely know that 2 drinks a day or 3 drinks a day, 21 drinks a week is associated with thinning of brain regions, but even 1 drink a day can be associated, average over a course of a week, 7 drinks a week, can be associated with regression or thinning of important brain regions that you need to function as a human.
I mean, in retrospect, imagine let's do a little ranking thing here. We have 3 vices, and I know exactly where you're going to be going with this, but we have 3 things we want to prioritize: dope, alcohol, smoking, right? Cigarettes. You can ban 1. Oh, actually, rank them in order. We can start from scratch. I'm saying, Joe, we're starting over.
Okay.
What you say goes. Rank so right now, the way we have dealt with these is smoking is becoming the most taboo of those 3. Cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana second, and alcohol is the one that we have the least inhibitions about, right? My argument would be that that list is exactly backwards. That it should be, alcohol should be the most taboo. Marijuana should be, actually not exactly backwards. It should be alcohol the most taboo, cigarettes the second most, marijuana the third. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And as you beautifully put out on social media, drinking is one of the few activities that if you don't partake, people assume or accuse you of having a problem. And it's just wild. I mean, like, why would that be? And I think it also once actually I was out to dinner with a colleague years ago and I declined drinking that evening. I was just talking to the visiting speaker and she said, God, that's so boring. And I thought, well, first of all, I don't have a problem saying what's on my mind without alcohol, right? I don't have a excessive GABAergic inhibition. So I'll say what I want to say.
The top countries based on longevity. And let's just start with number 1. It's Monaco, the teeny tiny city-state in Western Europe, where a whole bunch of wealthy Europeans live. So we were thinking maybe it was something to do with Asian country genetics, Japanese genetics. Nope, not really. We've got a bunch of Europeans who are living crazy long, like 10 years longer than their American counterparts. I wonder what's going on in Monaco. I wonder if they're eating lots of vegetarian food. Nah. I wonder if they're eating sweet potatoes. I wonder if they're walking up and down stairs or dancing or drinking wine every night. Probably plenty of wine. Really what they are is a bunch of rich people. What do rich people have access to? Well, they have access to boats and yachts and private clubs, but they also have access to top-tier medical care. And this really, really matters end of life.
So when we look at these outcomes related to cardiovascular risk, they also translate based on income and real survival. The 1%, both for men and women, have a life expectancy or longevity in the United States, which is as much as 10 years or more for men and approximately 10 years for women, such that the lower class of persons who have 1% of income versus the upper class with 1% of the highest income have a real gap in life expectancy. Now, you often hear politicians say that in the United States, despite having one of the most expensive healthcare delivery systems in the world, we have a longevity which is only 16th among developed countries. This may be true, but the real reason for that disparity in longevity are the racial, ethnic, and social determinants of health that I have described. In fact, a person who has means in the United States lives as long and as well as a person in Japan or Western Europe.
The infamous 1% is not only richer, but much healthier, writes Nobel laureate Angus Deaton in an accompanying editorial.
Charlie Munger may be best known as Berkshire Hathaway's vice chairman, Warren Buffett's best friend, confidant, and business partner for 6.5 decades. But Munger was also a giant in his own right, a scold of corporate excess and greed who preached to a large flock of devout followers about how to get along in investing and in life. A Renaissance man, Munger modeled himself after none other than Benjamin Franklin. He studied mathematics, physics, meteorology, and engineering, all before attending Harvard Law School. He trained himself in subjects as diverse as psychology and architecture. Munger passed away at the age of 99, just 1 month shy of his 100th birthday.
Now, Loma Linda in Southern California has been studied for over 40 years. This is a group of Seventh-day Adventists. This is a religious group, and it's a very, very interesting community because it's a transplant group. So unlike the people of Sardinia, who are ethnically very similar, the people of Loma Linda are very diverse and also very unique. Compared to the rest of the U.S., there are less white people, less Caucasians, and less African Americans, and a lot more Asian Americans. So then you start to think, maybe there's something in Asian genetics, but that doesn't really pan out either. But there are some very interesting things about the Loma Linda community. They are a faith-based community, and it seems that faith-based community, or maybe we could say community in general, tracks with longevity. Possibly. Very, very strong correlation. They are very much health-centered, so very much discourage alcohol use and cigarette use, and that would definitely track with longevity. Meaning and purpose and faith-based organizations, all of those go together. Very likely that tracks as well.
There's only one thing: you should stick with your family and with your friends, because this is the most important thing in your life, when you stick with your family and with your friends. And like I always say to my wife, we are the one life and we are here together. I do every day, making push-ups, sit-ups, hydraulic steps, run on a treadmill, because I have to be fit for my wife. Anytime she needs me, that I am there for my wife. This is my primary thing. Like this morning, I got up, I was 5 o'clock up this morning, and I was on a treadmill. I make all the other exercise. This is not a secret. Just be active, not to overeat, okay? Because this is the worst thing, people are overeating. They say, well, I'm hungry. You can control it. But I tell you what I had this morning. This morning, I had a glass of water, cup of coffee.
We're going to meet Viktor Frankl, the internationally famous psychiatrist, writer, and lecturer. He deals with the most common ailment of our time, meaninglessness.
Certainly nobody of us is spared suffering at one time or another. But everybody, in the midst of suffering, is given a chance to bear testimony of the human potential at its best, which is to turn a personal tragedy into a human triumph.
Dr. Frankl, what is meant by logotherapy?
Therapy means healing, and logos means meaning. Thus, logotherapy is really healing through meaning, although this, of course, is an oversimplification.
The lesson one could learn in Auschwitz and in other concentration camps in the final analysis was those who were oriented toward a meaning to be fulfilled by them in the future were most likely to survive.
Is a finite freedom, a limited freedom. That is to say, a human being is never fully free from conditions, be they of biological or psychological or sociological kind. But the ultimate freedom is always and remains always reserved to ourselves. That is the freedom to take a stand to whatever conditions might confront us. How we react to the unchangeable conditions is up to ourselves. In other words, if we cannot change the situation, we have always the last freedom to change our attitude to that situation.